As we get close to wrapping up our journey and talking about team member engagement and moving beyond engagement into a really, really healthy, high-performing workforce, one of the final things we're going to talk about is service culture. Now, hang with me here because this is not going to be kind of a traditional view of service culture. This is not going to be about how we treat our customers. And in fact, that becomes an entire different dialogue and a different issue. Service-based culture that I want to talk about and that I want to introduce to you today is going to focus on two things. One of those two things is how our internal service providers deal with our team members and how our leaders deal with team members. Now let's first talk about our internal service providers. And we're going to focus on just a couple of key areas that are common in most organizations, especially larger organizations. Those being human resources, IT, information technology, purchasing, and you can have probably a few others like facilities and maintenance and a few things like that. What is really, really critical in those particular areas is first the recognition that the team members that they interact with are their primary customers. And the way that they interact with those primary customer team members is going to have not a little bit of influence, but an absolute huge influence about how those team members turn around and treat our end customers. You know, if you want to play the soundtrack of Lion King right now, I just described for you the circle of life. How we treat our team members from those, critical service areas inside the organization absolutely dictates how our line level team members will treat our end customers and end guests. Now let's consider that by analogy for a minute. If a team member has a question about a paycheck and they pick up the phone and they call the human resource department and they are treated marvelously, treated like with all the courtesy, respect, urgency of an end customer, they get done with that interaction, their question is answered, there's a high likelihood that that team member is now going to take that experience and turn around and treat our end customers, the ones that are paying us, really, really well. The opposite of that, team member calls up and is treated as an inconvenience. There's no real respect there. There's certainly no courtesy there. And at the end of that interaction, team member is going to, whether they mean to or not, and even the best service providers fall into this, whether they mean to or not, they're going to take that out on our end customers. That's going to influence their tone, that's going to influence their attitude, and the next interaction they have is going to be a bit jaded or edgier as a result of it. Now, one of the things I've always asked internal service providers to consider is the same sets of courtesy, the same pleases, thank yous, all those kinds of things that we would consider appropriate for external service providers and our external customers need to be used internally, and they need to be used internally frequently and in every interaction. The other consideration, and this one's a lot harder for many organizations, if there are team members there, meaning late at night, Saturdays, weekends, maybe you're a 24/7 operation, maybe you're an extended hour retail operation, those internal service providers, the ITs, the HRs, the purchasings, the finances, they also need to be there so they can provide service. One of the bigger disconnects that a lot of organizations have is they run these 24-hour operations, but yet when those team members on a swing shift or a grave shift or a Saturday or Sunday need service, they have to do it in their off hours, not during their prime hours like a day 8 to 5 team would. The other consideration that I mentioned up front related to service culture is how leaders treat their team members. And there's three things that I want you to think about here. First of all is the use of courtesy words. This is an area where a lot of team members will self-acknowledge that they don't do enough of. You need to say please. You need to say thank you. You need to engage that on a regular, all-the-time basis with your team members. So rather than just kind of barking out stuff and, taking for granted your long-term relationship with them, say please. Say thank you. When you've mucked something up really bad, say I'm sorry. Also, I need you to use urgency with your team. Their vacation request might not be a big deal to you in the grand scheme of everything that you got going, but to that individual team member, knowing if their vacation was approved, not approved, or you want to talk about it, man, that is a huge thing in their life, so treat that with a very, very high level of urgency. And then the final piece related to service culture is I want you to really focus on, and this also connects to being a good engaging leader too, really focus in on listening to your team members. That is one of the great ways to demonstrate respect, and it's also one of the great ways to show that you are living a service-based leadership model. Listen to them, pay attention to them, give them your time when they ask for it.